DIY.
The Milken Institute Conference invited Snoop Dogg on to talk on a panel. At this portion of the interview, they're talking about streaming. Larry Jackson is talking about how exciting the streaming model is, and then Snoop goes off course for a second.
From that perspective, I think we're well positioned, with my history at Apple, our ability to plug into physical in the way that we can now, like no other company. Just seeing exactly the pie chart of streaming in the United States, streaming globally. It's an exciting time, really it is, I must say,
It's exciting, but streaming got to get their shit together. Because I don't understand how the fuck you get paid off of that shit. Can somebody explain to me how you can get 1 billion streams and not get $1 million?
Hello.
That shit don't make sense to me. I don't know who the fuck running the streaming industry, if you in here or not. But nigga, you need to give us some information on how the fuck to track this money down.
Yeah.
Cause 1 + 1 ain't adding up to 2. That shit don't add up, and I have to say it. Because that's the main gripe with a lot of us artists, is that we do major numbers with streams and this shit, but it don't add up to the money.
Mm-hmm.
What the fuck is the money? When I first came out, my records would sell based off of physical. If you sold 1 million copies, that means if $9.99, $9 million, you get this percentage, that's what it is. So if I sell how many streams, how much money do I get? It's not being translated, and it's not working for the artist right now, and I just want to speak to that. In the music industry, that's fucked up.
Shout out to Larry Jackson. You can't jump in a conversation and say real talk after you already said how exciting everything is at in terms of streaming.
Real talk.
There's a few things Snoop said here that got my spidey senses tingling. I'm about to get in my conspiracy bag, because Snoop is describing how unbalanced and how unfair the streaming model is for artists. We can clearly see that there are artists that are getting billions of streams. There are artists that are getting millions of streams. But when they get that check, which a lot of them have disclosed, because I've never gotten 1 million streams, it is a fraction of what you would think that amount of traffic would be worth to an Apple Music, to a Tidal, to a Spotify. Because we are talking about traffic to these particular platforms that people make a conscious decision to sign up for. I really want to know more details around how they landed on the numbers for streaming and how many artists were actually in the room to determine what is the cost of a stream. What is the value of a stream? The conspiracy theory that I have that I'm really digging into is this was a meeting headed by the record labels to answer to illegal downloading. The Napsters, the BearShares, the LimeWires. This was their kind of like FU. It was a way for them to get ahead of something that was already out of their control. Not only has the entire industry changed, the traditional music industry, it has shifted for even us as independents, as DIYers. Most of us are pushing traffic, and I want to keep emphasizing traffic to these streaming platforms.
It's an exciting time, really it is, I must say,
It's an exciting time for people who got the money. It's exciting for those who have figured out how to pimp the system.
Can somebody explain to me how you can get 1 billion streams and not get $1 million?
Well, let's talk about it, Snoop. Amazon Music accounts for 0.004 pay per stream. You need 250,000 streams to get to $1,000. Apple Music, 0.01. 100,000 streams to get to $1,000. Deezer, 0.0064. It's a fraction of a damn penny. 156,250 streams to get to $1,000. Tidal, 0.013. You need 76,924 streams to get to $1,000. Spotify, what is up with this 0.0033? This is the part where I want to ask, whose math is this? And who had an influence on the math? I would assume it would be the machine that's been making money since way before most of us were born. I would assume they had a say in the matter. When you think about this from a traffic standpoint, isn't that absolutely ridiculous? Imagine being a marketer or having a promotion company and somebody hires you and they say, we want to get more visibility for our business. How about we give you 0.004 if you can bring in 250,000 customers? If you can bring that amount of people to my particular platform, you know what? I'll give you $1,000. The ones that are respectable are going to look at that and laugh in your face. They know how much value that brings to your business because there's no ceiling on how much money all these people can spend. There's a ceiling on how much you're going to pay them, which is the $1,000. But if you have products that are averaging 200, 300, 400, you'll make that back so quickly. But why does that not apply when it comes to the music model? You don't find that suspicious?
That's suspicious. That's
Like,
weird.
that shit don't make sense to me. Like, I don't know who the fuck running the streaming industry, if you in here or not.
Mind you, he in a room full of techs, so they might have been in there. They was in there, probably the ones not laughing. They was like, we're going to talk to you after this.
My records would sell based off of physical. If you sold 1 million copies, that means if $9.99, $9 million, you get this percentage, that's what it is.
In that era that he's referring to, physical copies, that's when you could go into a record store and buy a single. I bought a cassette tape of Diggable Planets, Cool Like That. I said, I'm cool like that. On a cassette tape that had nothing else except for maybe a remix of Cool Like That and maybe like a Dracula version, whatever, you know, some weird ass remixes in the 90s. I love the 90s, but it was some weird ass remixes. It was like that and maybe the instrumental. I don't even know how much that was because my mom paid for it. I'll tell you what she didn't do. She didn't walk into Circuit City or Warehouse Music and say, I'm going to pay you 0.004 for that single.
And we need to find a way to figure that out. The same way the writers are figuring out, the writers are striking because streaming.
So there's writers currently on strike right now. Writers for TV shows and movie streaming websites, but they're on strike because of how unfair the system is when it comes to them getting paid off of these endless streams that these TV shows and movies are getting. Across the board, there's a lot of people who are recognizing this needs to change, or the sustainability of a creative's life in that ecosystem. It's not going to be of a long duration because there's too much overhead to make this continue to go. I look at this, you know what I think? Music industry is laughing at this stuff because they're like, cool, you want streaming? Watch what we going to do with AI. AI will be their new cash cow. When they figure this whole thing out for their end and how they're going to generate income, it will become its own industry entirely. It'll just be an AI generated space. I can absolutely see that because they can control it, because they don't have to be concerned with making deals with artists. It may be deals with coders. It may be them hiring in-house coders. They're not going to be concerned about the gripes of human beings. They're going to figure it out for themselves. And at that point, I'm not too nervous about that because that weeds out, first of all, the people who are only doing this for money and the people who probably should have been independent to begin with instead of complaining about what's going on in this space. And I'm not talking about Snoop. Snoop is now the owner of Death Row Records. He's an absolute boss and entrepreneur in many different spaces. When he says something like this on a platform like this, you better believe there's a ripple effect from it. You better believe there are people who are like, brace yourself. Major labels, they're looking at this like, that's what you're concerned about? All right, here. You want $1? I'll give you $1. I'll give you $1 for your stream. And then we'll celebrate that as a win. And then they'll turn around and put their focus where it really is, which is, in my opinion, it's this oncoming onslaught of AI.
It's not like in the box office. In the box office, if it does all these numbers, you may get an up. Oh, it did this many, here's another check. But on streaming, you got 300,000 hours that somebody watched your movie. Where's the money? And I know I'm going off a script right now, but fuck it.
I love it. Yeah. I love it. Talk your shit, Snoop. It takes a certain amount of clout, a certain amount of power, a certain amount of respect for a voice like Snoop's to be heard and for some kind of action to occur. So I salute Snoop for even saying anything, because at this point, what does he have to be concerned about? He has his hand in many different ventures. He could absolutely move on and say nothing at all about the streaming model. It's the fact that you planted that seed that is now going to change the behavior of a younger artist or an artist that has been a veteran that is looking at it and saying, yeah, why am I not trying to figure out more ways to generate income in a physical sense and not just be held down to the digital world that we're in right now? I was talking to somebody last night at my show about this. Human beings are very illogical. We do things that make absolutely no sense. When we say that something is going out of style, for instance, in the 70s and 80s, hush puppies were going out of style. You could read the story of Malcolm Gladwell's Tipping Point. They weren't the cool thing to wear. And then some hipster kids in the art scenes in New York started wearing these hush puppies, and they became a thing. They became a staple of that time. Do you know that that kept them, I believe, from going bankrupt because of those kids? What logical sense does it make for them to pick up these old people looking shoes and wear them as this is me and the in crowd? To me, it's the same logic that applies to vinyl records outselling CDs for the first time since 1987. What sense does that make? It's because human beings are going to always find a way to do the opposite of where everything is moving to, and then they'll move in that direction like a herd. I feel like as things become more sophisticated digitally, we will find ways to re-embrace products that are physical. Isn't that just what we do? As things become so AI based, there are going to be people who are going to play with this new toy called AI, and then at some point they're going to completely rebel against it, not because they're so up in arms about it taking their job or their role. They're just going to miss what it means to be a human being, which is be in touch mentally, spiritually, and emotionally with something physical. That is something that no matter what time period you are in, we always go back to it. As it comes to the streaming model, you would hope that things do shift. I would not bank on it happening soon, but I would say, DIYers, we should absolutely be planning for diversifying our product offering to our listeners. And independents, DIYers, we are barely scratching the surface. The best is yet to come. DIYers, if you enjoyed this content, make sure that you hit the like button and maybe even consider subscribing. Come on, man. Stop being greedy. Peace.